Hi, my name is Peggy Matson. I'm the program director here at Washington University in St. Louis for the Masters of Engineering Management program, as well as the Masters of Project Management. I'm also a professor of practice in the Engineering Management program. What I want to talk to you today about is one of my favorite topics, something that I believe to my core and is a key design principle for the Masters of Engineering Management program here at WashU. Uniquely here at WashU, I need to stress. I'm going to share my screen so you have the benefit of a few visuals here as I introduce the topic. Let me ask you a question first. What do these Fortune 500 CEOs have in common? A little bit of class, right? So they're all US based companies, whether you're based here in the US or overseas. I suspect you'll recognize most, if not all, the companies. You may not recognize the CEOs. So I'll tell you, they each have engineering degrees. So hold that thought. That's important. I'm going to introduce this framework that'll aid us a little bit further down. So that is, if you look at every business, small, big, it doesn't matter, their functions can fit into one of these three buckets. Solve the problem, classic engineering roles. Sell the problem, classic marketing and sales roles. Manage the money, classic finance roles. And each one of us tends to gravitate towards one of them. So I'm an electrical engineer, computer scientist. I gravitate first and foremost to the solve the problem. But here's the key. You don't have to limit your understanding to just the one bucket that you initially gravitate to. Most people do. In fact, most people do. So hold that thought. I want to introduce the first type of engineer, which is the classic stereotypical engineer. Most of us, the picture most of us have in our heads. The deep and neuro engineer is what I call it. Steve Wozniak is my example, where he's just focused on the technology. He would have given the technology away. He's co-founder, the technology-minded co-founder of Apple Computer, right? Steve Jobs built the business. Steve Jobs wasn't interested in the business at all. He was just interested in the technology. I I worked 30 years at Motorola, started out right out of undergrad with my electrical engineering degree. I worked with many fine, deep and neuro engineers, smart, great. I also knew I was different from them. I didn't know, I started to piece together how. I didn't really know I didn't have the vocabulary, I didn't have the structure to understand why or what to do with that. So the second type of engineer, which I identify with and the WashU MEM program is designed all around, I call the full cycle engineer. So my example is Mary Barra. She's the CEO of General Motors or GM. Started out life as an engineer, mechanical engineer, because they're an automotive company. And she built her understanding through education and experience in other departments to become that CEO that truly understands the full cycle. So I was always looking for how those pieces fit together in the business. I got my MS in electrical engineering and computer science because I did want to be a good engineer, despite the fact that I was never going to be that deep and narrow engineer. So we're the full cycle engineer. We're still interested in technology, but I'll tell you, I get bored before I get to the depth that the deep and narrow engineer can get into, and I don't want to stay so narrowly focused. So after I got my MS and then I got a business education, I became Motorola's first director of technology strategy. I worked closely with our CEO, who did not have an engineering degree, and my engineering background, because I bounced around departments every 2 years, so I worked on every product team. That background served me very well in this role. And then when I needed, because periodically I did need more depth in the technology than what I had, I went to the folks whose job it is to have that depth. I went and I found the appropriate deep and narrow engineer, and we worked together, we collaborated. That's how these two are meant to be. We're meant to play different roles and collaborate when we need to. So I've been in a room 3 different times with Fortune 500 CEOs who said something like, I started out life as an engineer. I wasn't a very good engineer, so I moved over to business, dot, dot, dot. They didn't have the vocabulary nor this framework. What they meant to say is, I wasn't a very good deep and narrow engineer. And once I figured that out and figured out I really was a full cycle engineer and I positioned my education and my roles with that, my career took off. They're CEOs of Fortune 500 firms. Their careers took off, right? So, but there's a common set of engineering strengths that we all have. I'll tell you, everybody wants to hire an engineer for these reasons. We're smart, we're excellent learners, we deal well with data, and we know what to do with it, with that data. We see problems and we're natural problem solvers, and we're methodical. We have a way of bringing order to chaos. The full cycle engineer is in fact different from the deep and narrow. We have our own set of strengths. We see the big picture. How I was talking about how I was always looking for that big picture. We see it, or if we don't yet see it, it just means you haven't gotten the education yet. And we're very capable of working, and we love working across those boundaries. I naturally collaborated before I had any sort of business education. I naturally collaborated with my friends in marketing, with my friends in finance. I love being in front of the customer. It was a relatively small part of the job because I was in product development in my engineering roles, but I loved working with the people across all the functions. I was able to make decisions not just based on data, but on people, the understanding of people, that willingness to work with people to get work done is critical and powerful. We're the ones that get work done. We know how to get work done. We love studying how work gets done because it takes people, and it takes collaboration in all these functions. Let the deep and narrow engineers focus on that technology. Pull them in as is needed. But if you can be the one that ships the product, that gets the work done, etc., that's incredibly powerful. In just one class in the program, my class is engineering management and financial intelligence, and this is exactly what we teach. The full cycle. We run a business via simulation. Your team is competing against the other teams in the class. We're learning about financial intelligence, the financial terminology. You're using it in the simulation, and we're literally learning about ambiguity, because as soon as you step outside of the engineering ranks, you're going to be dealing with a lot more ambiguity than you're used to, and we teach it. So the bottom line is understanding that full cycle of business in the way that we teach it opens doors if this is the type of engineer that you relate to, if you're excited about this. So you may choose to stay on the engineering side and move up in those ranks, become that manager. I was an early manager because I just gravitated to it. It made sense. Become that manager, become that ultimately that chief technology officer or that chief information officer. Or you can start to lean towards the ones that are a bit more business oriented, maybe stand in that space between project manager, data analyst, product manager, product owner, ultimately CEO. I have some students who are taking the program part-time. I have full-time students and part-time students. Part-time, they're working, and they've recognized through the program, oh, I am a full cycle engineer. So they have the vocabulary. Now they're getting the education, and they've moved already into a business role where they haven't even graduated from the program yet. I have a student that moved into a strategy role, much like I played in, or more business oriented. You could even move into a marketing role. So these doors, this breadth of doors, is what we are all about in opening up. So the bottom line, this is unique to the WashU MEM. If you identify with this, with the frustration of being compared, of being in classes or programs that are designed for the deep and narrow, if being in a job that really needs a deep and narrow engineer, and you identify with the full cycle engineer, I invite you, learn more about WashU. I invite you, fill out an application. If you already have filled out an application, I'm going to be reading them. So I look forward to reading them. I look forward to meeting you, talking with you. And I look forward to having you on campus if you're a good fit, because if you identify with this and you're a serious student, you will prosper here. You will learn what you want to learn to open up those doors, right? That's what we are all about. So here's my email. Thank you for your time. I have one more offer for you. If you want another perspective, right? This is my perspective. It's based on a lot of years in industry and a number of years in academia now. But if you want a student perspective or a recent grad, I can give that to you by just hooking you up with a student or a recent grad. I have folks in the US and I have recent grads in China. So shoot me an email. I'll be happy to do that. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on thinking seriously about taking that next step. And we look forward to having you.